Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our latest webinar, Globalise Your Website. Please welcome your host, Norma Foster.
Hi, lovely to be with you. Thank you, Rory.
No problem at all. It's a pleasure to have you here, Norma, and I'll let you crack on with the session
Great.
today.
Rory, you will give me a nudge at the break time, won't you? I get very enthusiastic. I don't want to keep ploughing on.
That's fine, yeah, no problem at all.
Fabulous. Okay, wonderful to be with you here this morning, everybody. We've got a great group of people, and it's my intention this morning to really share everything I can in a couple of hours with you about how to globalize your website. So how to create a website that is easy to be found in international markets, that people from different countries and cultures who have different behaviors and preferences and speak different languages will like when they see it. They'll understand it, and it will motivate them to get in touch with you and hopefully to do business with you. So we're looking to create an experience that generates trust with your audience and that brings in more business for you. So I am going to now just share my screen and take you into the PowerPoint presentation that I've prepared for you. There we go. Wonderful. So globalize your website, and you probably know how tough it is to work on your website at the best of times. But when we're faced with ensuring that that website works well in international markets and is bringing in new business for you, then there are quite a few things that we need to think about. And I'm going to take you through 6 top tips today on what you need to do to make sure that that website's working really hard for you in international markets and all of the international search engines. So my name's Norma Foster. I run my own consultancy business, Norma Foster Limited, and I am also director of the No Fuss Group, whose aim in life is to champion the cause of international business, looking at digital language and cultural challenges that businesses have when they are exporting overseas. And with most of our clients, particularly at the moment where you're under pressure and you're really feeling the need to become a bit of a chameleon, and isn't this guy just wonderfully colourful, where you're having to flex and change and adapt to all of the strange ongoings that we're going through at the moment. And actually, international trade is a wonderful way to go. It means that you are spreading your risk. It means you're tapping into different markets, so you have more options. You're reaching out to a bigger audience. And although there are some differences in terms of how you are trading internationally as opposed to just trading in the UK, actually that can be much easier in some circumstances. Yes, there are different things, but sometimes you have a more receptive, hungrier audience. It can actually be easier to trade online or to trade internationally, and particularly online. So that's what we're going to explore this morning. What are all of the things that I need to be doing on my website to ensure that I am generating more business and really maximizing on this time of change that we have, time where we're working on our business and trying to get things right, but also time where customers' needs are changing, that you're flexing and really adapting to the opportunities ahead that are coming down the line. So the 6 top tips to globalize your website, and we're going to go through these bit by bit and delve into each of these key areas in more depth. First of all, just going back to basics, let's look at building trust with your audience. And you have 2 key audiences, which you will be well aware of. First of all, you've got people overseas, international customers, and how do you generate trust with them? But you also have search engines, and how do we generate trust with all the different versions of Google there are in every single country. Or maybe China, where Baidu is the dominant search engine, or Yandex, which is the dominant search engine in Russia, for example, or Naver in Indonesia. So, you know, how do we ensure that we're building trust with the search engines as well? Through running a great website that creates a superb experience for local customers in those target markets and countries. I'm then going to take a look at profiling your customers, because you are building your international website for your customers, not for you. Great if you love your website, but actually it's more important that your customers really love your website. And in order to ensure from country to country that you're getting that right, it's even more important that you are putting yourself in your customer's shoes and understanding their wants and their needs and the differences in their behaviors and preferences internationally. So really important to understand them and do research such that you are able to create a great experience that they understand, they like, and that motivates them to do business with you. The third tip is think global, act local. We want you to give the impression of being a successful international business that can trade with any company in any country or market. But actually, Google, and we know that we all prefer to buy from the person local to us, who is close at hand, who knows and understands us, that we can trust. So therefore, the more local you make your website offer, the more you adapt to language and cultural preferences in each country and market, the more successful your website will be, the more traffic and engagement it will get, and that has a knock-on positive effect with the search engine that will then reward you with more prominent position on the search results. So think global, act local, want to really think about, and I've got some good screen grabs and tips and tricks to share with you on that one. I've reviewed all of your websites, had a good look at them, which was really interesting. And I have run a short website audit on each of your websites. If you would like a little bit of feedback on that, connect with me on LinkedIn. I will be very happy to share the results of that web audit with you, and I'll give you another prompt at the end of this session. And I've noticed that most of you are either thinking or already doing business globally. However, there's very few of you that have actually started thinking about really setting up your website strategy for international business and thinking about languages and the value that that can add. So we're going to start off, and I'm going to show you 3 easy steps to developing your website strategy and how to approach that. And I'm going to show you all 3 steps, but you might be happy at this point in time just doing step 1. You may be ready to tackle step 3, but we'll look at a good, easy, accessible and manageable way for you to develop your website strategy such that it's sustainable and you can continue adding to it as your export sales increase. Then we're going to take a look at languages, and I'm going to share some evidence and statistics with you on what a difference it can make to actually introduce languages to the communications mix. For example, we know that if you address people in their native language online, even if they speak English or some English, but if you address them in their native language, your sales can go up by over 400%. So it makes a huge difference if you are actually adapting and adopting to the local language and the local culture, and not necessarily translating your entire website, but doing that initial meet and greet and sharing some international and language content such that it makes people feel loved and wanted and understood, and that you are making the effort to reach out to them and embrace their language and culture. The search engines also recognize that, and if you are introducing local content and particularly local language content, that can work much harder for you in that local search engine. And then the final tip is all around preparing to plan, not just planning, but actually you've done your back to basics and a stock take on where you're at and looking to build trust with your audience. So you've got your benchmark. We're then going to look at what are your goals and where do you want to get to, and what are all of the things that you need to have in place and to do. So really taking time out to prepare all of that so that when you sit down to plan, you've got everything that you need, you have clarity, you've got focus, and that planning and implementation phase then becomes much easier. So I am going to dive into the top tips now. I would love you to make this a bit more of an interactive session. I know we have a planned break, but I might just throw in a couple of Q&A sessions if you have questions after particular sections. So please have a piece of paper by your side. I will be calling out actions for you so you can jot those down and at the end review them and decide which ones you want to pursue, but also jot down your questions and send those through. Rory will be monitoring them, and I would like to be able to answer as many questions for you as possible. So back to basics. Top tip number one. We've been through such a tumultuous first half of 2020, really, with everything that's been going on. And we're all now wondering what's coming ahead with Brexit looming and with potential changes towards the winter and how we're managing coronavirus. Are we going to be working from home? Are we able to get out there more? And obviously all of us switching much more to digital methods of working. So this is a great time to go back to basics and really analyze where you are at now. And these are just some top level things for you to think about. The first one at the top here, do I still have a business? You know, how is my business doing? Can I export? Because we say if you are going to focus on an export market, you really should be thinking about having a month spare in your calendar over the year such that you are able to dedicate effort to actually developing and building up that export market. So where are you at in the business? Because we don't want you to be thinking about exporting and doing globalization on your website if that makes you take your eye off the ball and you're not able to keep the UK business ticking over nicely and developing on an organic basis. So have a think about, you know, that export position. Talk to your advisors at Digital Drive Durham. There's also the Department for International Trade there, great gov website that have a lot of support there for you know, early exporters and people who are wanting to review where they're at and what they can do. Then, do you have customers? You know, has your customer base changed? And actually, do those customers now still want what I am offering, or am I pivoting my products? Am I going to make some changes and adapt? Am I moving from face-to-face and actually dealing with customers in person to presenting more of an online offer? And what does my offer then look like? And my customers in the UK, I'm used to working with in a particular way, but let's look at the different countries and cultures and actually do customers there have different needs? And we'll be exploring that a little bit more in the customer profiling session. Capability, can I still fulfill, or how am I going to fulfill orders and service delivery when I'm exporting? So again, something to really think about and think about how you can streamline that. Do my price calculations stack up? Have you done a review since the beginning of the year in terms of how these challenging times have actually affected your price calculations and your price competitiveness in the marketplace? So this is a great time to sit down and do an in-depth competitor review. What are my competitors doing in terms of the product offer, in terms of their websites and how they're presenting what they're doing, and in terms of pricing and positioning? You know, your offer in the international market, how will you compete? What are your unique selling points? And how will you differentiate yourself and make yourself more appealing and attractive from country to country and market to market? That's generally about being easy to contact and easy to do business with and giving people a great experience, particularly online, but we'll be reflecting on that through today's session. Are your payment terms good enough? Again, is something that is really worthwhile thinking about, and potentially having 2 or 3 different payment methods for different marketplaces. The Germans, for example, don't really like using credit cards, either in person or online. So, you know, PayPal is very popular there, or online methods of payment that don't necessitate having a credit card and giving up credit card numbers. And there are certainly different preferences for different payment systems, if that's relevant for you, from country to country. That's also worth sharing. And what payment terms can you be offering? And is that going to be attractive for the local marketplace? And then finally, your route to market. How are you going to get the message out to overseas clients about what you have to offer? Is that going to be direct to customers? Are you going to have wholesalers or retailers? Will you have agents, distributors in country? And if you have got partners in a representation in country, can you work together and do joint marketing, which will give you a win-win solution, hopefully? So that's a bit of a list. The recording will be available to you afterwards. Hopefully you've been able to make some notes there. Please do jot down your first action point about doing a stock take and taking a close look at what your position is now, and a clear benchmark, because if you understand where you are and you know your vision and where you want to get to, it then becomes much, much easier to map a route between the two. Now, in terms of back to basics, and this is a real core essential, we know that people buy from people that they trust. And this is such a fundamental issue. And I know we're talking about digital and globalizing your website and doing business online, but essentially your website is there to recreate the experience of a personal discussion and a personal meeting with yourself. And it's there to start building a relationship with customers, to start building trust with people and trust with the search engines. So here's a question for you. When you visit a new website, and you might want to drop some of these aspects into the chat box, you know, what actually erodes trust? What puts you off? Just have a think about that. You know, you've done a search, you pick a website, up it comes, you click on it, the website pops up. What puts you off? And I think it will probably be things like pop-up boxes, wanting you to sign up for things. It's going to be spelling mistakes. It will be pictures that are slow to load. It will be a website that looks a bit disorganized and chaotic, or a bit out of date. So there are lots of things when looking at a website that do put you off. Broken links is another one. So this all erodes at trust. And what we are really trying to do here is build trust with our audience. And this is what trust looks like on the web, essentially. Well, anywhere, but particularly on the web. On the left-hand side, we've got the extent to which I believe you to be competent and capable. So are you somebody who really knows their stuff? Are you good at what you do? Do you deliver great products and services? Because if you do, and you explicitly state that on your website, you're moving me from distrust down here up to respect. On the bottom axis, we've got the extent to which I believe you care about me. If you are showing to people, particularly overseas, that you really care about them and understand them, that if they put up their hand and get in touch with you, you're really going to put them first and yourself second. You're going to make an effort to speak a little bit of their language, make them feel at home and make them feel understood and also valued. Then you are moving your customers from distrust to affection, and respect and affection will make up for trust. So in everything you do online, particularly for international markets, you're putting your customer first and creating an experience on your website that will very much make them feel at home and make them feel that you care about them and are making an effort to give them a top quality customer experience. One final aspect in terms of doing a benchmark, and this is not to be forgotten at the moment, is your own health and well-being checklist. You know, how are you doing and how are you looking after yourself? Because, you know, branching out into global and looking to increase your export sales can be exciting, and it is exciting, and it's a wonderful thing to do, but it can also be demanding. So do a quick check-in as to how you are. How are your energy levels? How is your physical health? What about stress and anxiety? What about happiness and your motivation levels? They're 5 good places to start. So jot that down on your action plan too, in terms of just checking in with yourself and maybe, you know, prioritizing a little bit of time in your calendar for you to be looking after yourselves as well. So back to basics, the summary. First of all, know where you are. Do a benchmark, evaluate using the analyze where you're at slides, all of the different areas. We're looking to build trust with your audience, search engines, and people. So be mindful of that. How can I build trust with my audience in everything that you do? Tip number 3 here, have a plan B. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket. You know, diversifying into global markets really is a great way to go. And perhaps you want to be looking at 2 or 3 different countries, one relatively easy and straightforward, maybe one a little bit further afield, where you can actually have a couple of pilot projects going if you're starting out on your journey, or you can be doing more developments on 1 or 2 such that it doesn't become overwhelming and too much for you. So have a plan B in place, and actually to what to the work that you're doing, the sales that you're doing in the UK, your export strategy will already be a plan B as well. And number 4, take care of yourself. So tip number 2, customer profiling. So this picture is quite an interesting one, and I use this quite a lot in the workshops and webinars that I do. You are the cameraman behind the camera. You understand everything about your business, and you are looking out through the lens, understanding everything, loving your business and what you do to the outside world, and you have a great view, and it all makes complete sense to you. Your customer is the little robin, and that customer is sat on the opposite side of your lens looking into the business. Your customers get often a very different view and perspective of your business to the view that you have. And they often don't know anything at all about your business and what it is that you have to offer other than what you are communicating to them. So it's really important that you get strong messages across that are accurate and reflect your offer and your values and how you want to take care of your customers. So this trust thing, you know, showing that you know your stuff and you've got a great offer, showing that you care about your customers, that you are really getting that message across accurately and in an attractive and strong way, such that it is clear to them. The barriers for international customs to contact us foreigners can be quite high, so we want to overcome as many of those barriers as possible. So you may or may not have done profiling for your UK customers. If you have, then we're building on this. If you haven't, then this will be a great process for you to go through to make sure that you are really building your website and globalizing your website such that it works at its optimum for you and brings in as much traffic, as many enquiries and conversions as possible, because you're building the website for them. So what I usually ask customers to do before we embark on globalizing their website is for them to pull together a CDA, a customer database analysis. And I like clients to look at potentially the last 3 years of business. Now, I know some of you are quite new and have just started to trade. That's fine. You will work on your experience and expertise to date, and perhaps just at this point in time, work on your forecast and your assumptions about who your customers are. Do the best you can. But if you have got some clients to look back on, then please do so. Do a customer database analysis, look at customers you've worked with in the past, and against a set of criteria, once you've pulled that database together, we're going to be looking at trends and themes. So you'll be wanting to jot down things like the size of the business, the turnover of the business, the sector, where they're located, how many people work there, what products and services they've bought from you, do they pay well, do we like working with them, you know, what different languages do they speak, particularly if they're in international markets. So set out your criteria and then look at that collective, that spreadsheet, or however you've pulled that database analysis together, and look at the trends and themes that are coming out from that. And I've done this exercise with many businesses, and it always forms the initial part of any work I do with clients these days. They never cease to be surprised and amazed, at the information that comes out of this review, but also how valuable it is. So do this work yourself, don't outsource it. You will really get to grips with your customers again. It will spark all sorts of memories and thoughts with you. Take a look at their websites, you know, dig deep, look at what they're doing on social media. So make that a comprehensive bit of work. I would suggest at least 15, 20 clients. If you've got more, 30 to 50, great. If you have much more than that, it's a bigger exercise, but do what feels right to you. And then I ask clients to look at putting as many of those clients as you can into groups of clients, where you would address them if they were in front of you with a specific tone and approach, where you would address them with specific messages and evidence. But if you had that group of people, you would need to change the tone and approach. You'd need to change the language. You'd need to change the messages and the evidence. So we're looking to put them into groups where actually it needs a different approach. So to give you a crass example, the difference between approaching someone in public sector to approaching a small startup business, to approaching a manufacturer, or someone working in professional services, or perhaps an artist. So you will need to look at those groupings and pick no more than the top 5 that you want to focus on. The ones that are the most valuable, that produce the best results for you, the ones that you most enjoy working with, and prioritize those top 5 groups that will be the focus for your marketing and communications and sales and international business development drive, and also a focus on your website. So once you've got your customer groups, the organizational groups sorted, we then need to identify who is the key decision maker, who's the key customer within that company, because you are building a website and creating an experience on the website internationally that will keep them interested and encourage them to tick, yes, I want to find out more about this business, I want to get in touch and look at buying from them or doing business with them. So who is going to make that decision? Who is it that's going to decide to buy from you, either on a B2C or a B2B perspective? And we're then going to create a profile for those specific clients. And there is a great tool on HubSpot. You may have heard of HubSpot before. So if you, and I've got the URL coming up for you shortly, if you simply Google HubSpot customer personas or customer profiles, it will give you a lot of information that you can review, both for B2B, business to business, and business to consumer, that will be really helpful. This is a PowerPoint template which HubSpot make available to you, and they have this sample for Sally, head of human resources at a B2B company, and just a simple profile of Sally's background, demographics, identifiers. How does she communicate? What are her preferences? Where does she hang out on social media? What are her goals and challenges over the next year? Because if I can present what I do from Sally's perspective, so tell her what I can do for her, rather than simply explaining what I do as a business, it will be more meaningful, it will resonate more, and it will encourage her more to buy from me or get in touch with me. So once you've identified the goals and challenges, you'll then be turning your marketing and communications messages in what can we do to help our persona achieve their goals, and what can we do to help the persona overcome their challenges. Then we're looking for real quotations. I worked with a lovely retailer here in fashion, a onesie company, and they kept all of their client testimonials and feedback after orders had been received. And we worked through those and pulled out real quotations, which was wonderful because it gave us lots of information about their goals and challenges, but also lots of keywords and testimonials that we were able to use on the website. Then you'll give some thought to common objections. You know, what might people say if they were faced with a sale from you? Oh, well, gosh, that might take too long, or this may be too expensive, or I don't really know what I'm doing, or you know, I'm not quite sure whether the other directors in the business will be happy with this approach. I mean, what might the objections be to that person doing business with you? Because you want to be answering those as part of the content that you are sharing in your website. And it's so important to get these answers on a global website, because that will also minimize the amount of international enquiries that you're getting through. Then you're going to create your marketing messages, which are so much easier once you've been through this and understood your personas, and create finally an elevator pitch, which will be your top level sales message for each specific product and offer that you have there. So this is a great way to really create those effective marketing messages. And there's the URL for you, blog.hubspot.com/marketing/buyer persona research. But if you do HubSpot, how to create personas, it will bring the content up for you. So once you have that customer persona set out, What I then ask you to do is to go out and interview the clients based on facts and evidence. So to really pick 2 to 3 customers from each group, to prepare a questionnaire that you will use as a prompt, not as a script to read through, and invite those customers to spend a short amount of time. I generally do 15-20 minutes, where you can interview them and just ask them questions about their ambitions, about their challenges, about how they want to be communicated with, about how they see your products and services, any feedback that they might have, what they might search for when they're searching online for what you have to offer. Stick to the time allocated in the interview. And what I often do, always do, is ask their permission to record the session. I've not had anybody say no yet. And then you can review the recording afterwards for keywords and key phrases and such like. But in the interview, you can focus completely on the client. And then once you have all of that information, you can take that back and refine the profile on an actual factual evidence basis. So you are substantiating and making the profiles more robust such that your marketing can work harder for you internationally. And if you are thinking about 1 or 2 countries, you will want to make sure that you can talk to a few customers in international markets. If you don't yet have those customers, then a good way to do this is some online research and look at potential target customers and just see where they're hanging out on social, and maybe see what they're chatting about on social media resources. I have one client who actually got some funded support to actually do a market visit, and they spent a week in market and just looked at the high street. They sold Scottish knitwear, looked at the high street, how people were behaving, how they were behaving online, checked out local social media profiles when they were there and search engines, but just talked to as many people as they could whilst they were there and brought that research back. So there are many ways of doing this, but I think in the first instance, to look at your customer base and get that right is a great place to start. If you don't have the international customers to interview as yet, then pop that down for a job that you can do in the future when you do. So this will give you keywords, key phrases, testimonials. It will give you insights into where they're hanging out on social media and how they want to be communicated with. So this interview process is really worth its weight in gold. Then once you've finished all of this work, I like to get the top level up there. And this is a template that you could potentially clone, what we call a customer profile or persona or avatar. There's lots of different ways of describing it. Some people call it human-centered design. Goals and values, challenges, where they get their information, objections and the role in the purchase process, and some demographics for that individual. You could actually put a real picture there. I like to give the customer profiles a name like Sally or Dawn or John or William or whatever, just so that you give this person a personality to their profile. You are creating all of your marketing communications and sales messages and business development efforts towards this person. So it really makes sense to understand them thoroughly. And just a final prompt on this section is also, don't forget to think about who you are. You know, what is your profile? What are your challenges? What are your aspirations? How do you want to be communicated with? You know, what are the values that are important to you? It is sometimes so interesting to do a profile on yourself and to actually see how well you are matched with your customers, and what that means for your customers in terms of who you are and how you're going to be offering your best self to them. So again, you might want to jot that down as an action and actually, you know, invite your customers to just think about that, engage with you more, and be aware of who you are and how you are, because you will make up, particularly if you're an owner manager, you will make up the better part of your business. So the summary of the customer profiling section: do a customer database analysis, profile your key decision makers, having picked out up to 5 core groups that you would like to focus on. It may just be 2 or 3, and that's absolutely fine, but focus on the decision makers and what makes them tick, and how can I present my global offer such that they will want to say yes. And you'll have different decision makers potentially from company to company. Interview customers if you can, and use that interview evidence to refine the profiles and to provide you with content and collateral that will help you with your international content strategy. And don't forget to think about your own profile, your own best self, and how you want to present yourself to your audience. That will actually be brilliant to help you create your LinkedIn profile. And don't forget, on LinkedIn, you can actually present your profile and your company pages in up to 24 different languages. That is often a really great way to quickly start getting messages out there about yourselves and your company. And it is one of the best optimized resources on the web, with over 690 million people on LinkedIn. It's a great way to get your message out to over 200 countries and regions. So doing your own profile will help you to develop that hopefully heartfelt and authentic LinkedIn profile, because they're the ones that work best. So Rory, I've actually popped in a slide here. We're not quite at 11 o'clock, but that's quite a lot of information, I think, for you to take in there. So I'm just wondering whether we have any questions here. And good man, you've got your sound on. Go for it. Have we got any questions?
Currently, we don't have any questions, actually. But if they do have any questions, if you do have any questions, then please do use the Q&A box on your Zoom toolbar.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It is a lot to take in. And in the next session, I'm going to dive into thinking global and act local. But often people think, wow, you know, it's such a lot of work doing the customer profiles and getting them right and doing the benchmarking. But actually, it's such a valuable piece of work to do. So do your best to get that done and to dedicate some quality time to it, because it will bring you some exceptional results. It's also a great way actually to warm up clients that you might not have dealt with for a while. You know, I often see customers doing these interviews with clients, and actually they start picking up new bits of business because they've asked their clients to share some of their expertise and thoughts and paid them a bit of attention. So often they're good for bringing in new sales as well. There's a bit of motivation for you.
Definitely, yeah, for sure. So I'm not sure we're going to get any questions at the moment.
Okay.
So
No,
would you like to carry
great.
on, or would you like
Yes, I will. And please, guys, do keep your questions coming if you have any. It's also great for you guys to share amongst each other. Just maybe you just want to share some experiences that you're having rather than questions. So thank you, Rory. We'll go into Think Global, Act Local now. So top tip number 3, think global, act local. So we want you to present your company, your offer, such that people anywhere in the world will think and believe that you can take great care of them and offer them a great experience. That you are someone who really knows their stuff and you can trade no matter which country they are from. However, giving across that impression. And often you're giving an impression that you are actually a bigger organization than you are. It's funny, isn't it, how size sometimes makes people feel more comfortable. But having said that, people also prefer to buy from someone who is local to them. So it's important to present your website in this way. Google knows that people want to buy from people that are local to them. So if you give the impression of being in country, even if you're not, if you share local content, local contact details, and embrace the local languages and culture, you will be rewarded with better search engine optimization results. You will find that your website will move higher in the rankings. So it does pay to reflect on this. And I often have people saying to me, oh, most of my clients speak English, I don't need to put foreign language content up there. But actually, if Google in Germany or France sees that you have some local language content there, it will give you an edge in terms of the customer experience, but it will give you an edge in terms of your search engine optimization results as well. So we're going to take a little bit of a look at how you can do this. And there are just endless possibilities. I'm going to share some top tips with you here on how you can present yourself. And I'm going to, I'm going to start off from a very pragmatic and practical perspective, because money and time are precious, and we want to take this on a bit of an easy, accessible and not incredibly expensive basis. So I've got an old website here of Nigel Wright Recruitment in the Northeast. Their website has changed, but this one actually gets the message across really well. They have developed their website. They have a template that the web developers have designed and built for them. And this is their UK offer. So this subdirectory sat on a UK sub, it was actually a subdomain rather than a subdirectory. There's very little difference between them, and I will share that with you shortly. They have a local UK telephone number here up at the top of the screen, and they've got the British flag in the wing mirror. For their German section, and just imagine you wanted to do just a few simple pages for Germany, they have taken exactly the same template. They have extracted the English copy. They've had it translated, put the German copy into the website. They have got a local German telephone number. Now, Nigel Wright do have offices in Germany, but that could be a Skype telephone number from Germany that diverts to your phone. And they've simply done a quick fix, airbrushed in the German flag into the wing mirror of the car. So you're not having to get any particular, extra developments done on the website. You can use your existing template. And here you'll see the version for France, different images, different telephone number. And here you've got the version for Belgium. Belgium is a little bit unique because they have several major languages. Here, Nigel Wright have focused on Flemish and French. So they've added a second language navigator so that you can change the country and you can also change the language pending your preferences. If any of you are looking at countries like Switzerland or the United Arab Emirates, or even the USA, for example, you might want to consider doing this and then offering US English and US Spanish, because over 50% of the population speak Spanish in the USA. So this is quite a handy trick for you to use. The other thing which can give that, think global, act local perspective is how Tetley have set out their global offer. And I love the way that they've used a cup of tea for setting out all of the different countries that they are engaging with. This is the tetley.com website, and when you click on the respective cup of tea with the flag on, and please only use flags if you are targeting countries. I'll come on to that shortly. And they have their tetley.pl, so their Polish website. You can see it does look, I haven't got it there. It does look different to the English website. So they've made the design a little more attractive for the local Polish population. And here we've got tetleyusa.com. Now, because the .com is a generic domain, they've actually inserted USA into the URL, which is quite a good trick, especially if you're not able to get the .com version of your domain name, which will give you an edge in international search engines if you do have what we call a generic top-level domain. I am coming on to that as well shortly. If you can't get the .com domain, then popping the country name in here, like Tetley USA or Tetley Germany or Tetley France, for example, could give you that extra edge. So that's a little trick that's worth thinking about, because I know some of you might struggle because you're on the .co.uk to actually get the .com domain name. The HSBC have taken it a step further. They have completely redeveloped their website from country to country. So this would be stage 3. Here you can see the UK website. Then the next one is the website for Australia. And again, these are old screen grabs, but they do get the point across really well. This is the HSBC in Germany. And this is the HSBC in China, where they like it to be busier, and there are this chance to win the quiz, the Whizzy Bits rotates, and there's different things going on. So doing a little bit of research into what do websites look in these respective countries and adapting them, looking at your competitors and your customers and getting impressions about websites can actually make a big difference and be really helpful. And finally, this is the HSB website for the United Arab Emirates. Now, in the UAE, the population is predominantly English speaking, foreign language speaking. Only about 19% of the population actually speak Arabic. However, most of those people, the Arabic speaking people, are the decision makers and the people who hold the purse strings. And because they are also a country where business is done very much through relationships, I would strongly recommend, if you are looking at Arabic speaking countries, that you also create an Arabic template. Now, this would take more development work. As you see here, this is the English-speaking website. This is the Arabic-speaking website because they read from right to left. So you have to essentially flip the template round so that the template works from right to left. And there are some other things that would also need doing, which I shall come on to in a second. So can you see how it looks completely different? You can't drop Arabic language into a left to right reading European template, Western world template. So the other aspect I think about this one, just coming back to the English version of the HSBC website, is that here you will see the man appears on the website on the left, and that's the unclean side in Arabic countries. Here you will see the gentleman is portrayed actually on the right side. And just these little cultural things are quite important, just as it's important for this kitchen furniture manufacturer who were targeting the Middle East and couldn't understand why their sales efforts were hitting a brick wall. When we looked at the website and their brochures, they had a glass of wine or a wine rack in pretty much every kitchen image they had in the website. And of course, you know, alcohol is not always viewed positively in Middle Eastern markets. So you need to be respectful for that and adapt your images accordingly. This was an old campaign for sunglasses, and in certain countries they had dogs and pigs and cows and sheep and such like, but particularly dogs in certain Far Eastern countries are seen as unclean animals, and you just wouldn't consider putting on a pair of sunglasses that had been on a dog. The Pepsodent campaign, again, a very old example, but they went into international markets, and the strapline was Pepsodent makes your teeth gleaming white. But in Indonesia, they chew the betel nut because they find black teeth attractive. So the message here and your action points for your action plan is very much to do your cultural research in country, such that you are getting your top level messages right. And of course, this research will form part of your customer profiling, which we've already talked about. So doing the customer profiling means that you can avoid some of these really quite substantial mistakes that are going to cost you time and cost you a lot of business. Finally, a great way of tapping into this think global, act local perspective is for you to set up your website contact us processes in a smart way. Philip took over International Pipelines when his father fell ill. He revamped the website. Again, this is an old example, but it gets the point across so beautifully. And it was a very simple website. The company had been trading for over 30 years, very successfully. And when you click on the Contact Us button, it takes you through to this page. International Pipelines work closely with stockists, manufacturers and partners on a worldwide basis to deliver to the global customer base. They're open for business in all destinations, and they have 6 offices in different contents, and invite you to contact each office individually. International Pipelines was actually a one-man band, and these international offices were originally Skype telephone numbers that Philip had set up that redirected to his mobile phone until it became too much. I don't know whether his wife threatened divorce, but she might have done, from getting calls at all times of the night. But he then set up virtual office services in each of these countries that were in the local time zone, that spoke the local language, that against a tight brief from him were able to do a first responder to the initial enquiries, pass them on to Philip in English, that he could then manage and turn around in 24 or 48 hours, whatever his commitment was. On the back of this approach, Philip's turnover went up 160% in 6 months. So it's a very smart, easy way to make your customers feel at home, to make them feel that you have representation locally, where someone is talking to them and dealing with them. Of course, when Philip then got in touch, he shared information about the business and how he works, and that it was just him, gave wonderful customer service. But by then, the conversation had started, trust had already developed because he was swift to respond and the communications was excellent, and his conversion rate was really quite excellent on the back of his approach. So I think, you know, there's a lot there for you to think about in terms of how you can present yourselves in a global way that's attractive and compelling to your customers, that will make you look able to trade internationally, but also offers you some opportunity to really focus on presenting a local perspective on how you offer your products and services, such that people feel at home, they feel that you understand them, and they feel that you are offering a customer journey and a customer service that will take really good care of them. There are some great websites for doing your international research over and above looking at Google and social media. Quintessential, spelled KW, Quintessential is a great one. Lonely Planet actually have some good resources and guides up there. The BBC, interestingly enough, also has a lot of information about local countries. The Department for International Trade have great guides on doing business in different countries around the globe. That is a fabulous resource, which I think you will find very useful. There is something called the CIA, yes, the American CIA, the CIA Fact Book, which is also a terrific resource for your local research. And I'm sure on Google, you will find a lot of different things that will help you with that as well. So I hope you found that useful. As a summary again, number one, on Think Global, Act Local, use local content to build trust. Adapt templates and designs to suit a local audience, also keeping costs and effort at a minimum. So clever use of content, foreign languages, and also images and even videos, and actually getting your videos either dubbed with a foreign voice, or actually just providing the ticker tape translations along the bottom could be a great way for you to present your offer. Almost 80% of people watch videos these days with the sound turned off, so I think that would be an effective way for you to approach that. Keep it simple, like you know, the examples I've shown you. Less is more, and that will stand you in very good stead. It is quite challenging, and I would say to you, how many of you have bought from a foreign language website in the last 6 to 12 months, particularly where there was no translation available? Keep it simple, less is more, provide a simple experience, and really set out well that journey for the customer. You know, how is their sales journey going to work on your website? The other thing that is worth mentioning here is that frequently asked questions, I have mentioned this already once, but just to emphasize it, to go on your action point list, frequently asked questions are a great way to provide answers to clients on your website, such that you are reducing the amount of enquiries you get from foreign countries and people who don't necessarily speak great English. And it is often useful to actually translate those frequently asked questions as well. So just bear that in mind, and that keeps the whole communications process more simple as well. And if you have new questions being asked, make sure you're consistently adding those to the frequently asked questions as well. And then tip number 4, provide local contact information. Be smart how you do that. You know, it's very much a process thing, but a lot of people in America, for example, are very nervous about contacting and doing business with people outside of the USA. So to have a local representation there, whether it's an agent or a distributor who can deal with enquiries for you, who are portrayed on your website, or whether it's just a local telephone number that diverts to someone who can give them some initial help in the local time zone, in their local language, that can be a great bonus. And some of these small things can actually have a big impact and bring some really good results for you. So that was Think Global, Act Local. Top tip 4, and this is quite a chunky section, So, Rory, I don't know, do we want to take a quick 5-minute comfort break? Do you think we need it, or shall I keep going?
I think we could take a quick 5-minute break.
5-minute break. Okay, wonderful. Guys, if you have got any questions, please bring them through. It will give me an opportunity to reflect on them. So I will see you back here at 17 minutes past 11.
Perfect.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, welcome back everybody. We do actually have just one quick question in the Q&A box from Hazel. Is it best to expand into other countries one at a time?
Good question, Hazel. And I often ask people to do 2 countries, but to have your core focus on one of those countries, but be doing a second one, because something could happen where they simply have a national crisis, or they change the way they view or handle exports, or something happens that means that you just simply can't trade with that one country, and then your export business is gone. But if you've got a second country that you're running concurrently, you've kind of got 2, so it may go wrong in one country for reasons beyond your control, but you've still got the second one to fall back on, if that makes sense. So I think running with 2 to 3 initially is a great idea, but having your core focus on one of those.
Brilliant. And then we've also got another question from Alex, which is, does Norma have any experience of offering live customer support in various locations? I think that means internationally, I believe.
Live customer support in various locations. Yes, I do. I'm not quite sure what live support you might mean. If you mean finding people who can provide that support for you in country, then yes, that's a bit of research. If you mean, have I gone out into international markets for clients and done international business development and sales or representation at exhibitions? Yes, I've also done that. So I'm not quite sure what he means there.
Yeah, so Alex has specified on that question, he's talking about chat boxes on websites.
Chat boxes on websites. Yeah, it's about finding the right people to do that, and it's just a wee bit of research. There's actually quite a lot of people that now will do that, whether you're going for freelancers and people who speak the native language and understand your sector, or you're actually getting that managed by translation companies and translation professionals. They need to have an understanding of your business and your sector. That's the only proviso. So you might have contacts or agents out there. If not, then you need to find native speaking professionals who can help you with that, who you might need to upskill a bit in terms of what your offer is and how they respond to enquiries.
Brilliant. And that's all the questions we have so far.
Okay,
so
fantastic. All right, Rory, thank you. So guys, your 3-step international website strategy, and this is us sort of stepping back and taking a helicopter view almost of where you're going to be heading with your offer. So first step in designing your international website strategy is to get it right in the UK, in UK English first. You cannot build an international website strategy on shaky foundations. So I'd be wanting to do a review of your UK website, and how is that performing in English, and how can we actually make that stronger such that we've got strong foundations to globalize your website with. You also need to think about not just the technical side, the build, the design, the navigation, etc., but also the search engine optimization work, and how is that performing for you in Google UK, and how you can then build on that internationally. Now, a really great second step in your international website strategy is tapping into this aspect of think global. So you may just want to start adding content into your website, and some of you are already doing this, about how you are trading internationally across many countries or with certain countries, and you're starting to address issues about how this sales journey works for the client, given they are in a different country. How does it work? How do we receive the order or the services? How do we receive the payments? How does that whole piece work from a practical perspective? So you can either introduce a section into the website called global locations or international, or however you want to do that, so that anyone who lives in a foreign country can go to that section and see how your business works given they are in a different country. Or you can simply adapt the whole website in English such that you're saying, well, if you're in the UK, this is how it works. If you're in an international market, then this is how it works, so that you're sort of blending that together across the whole website. The one thing to bear in mind is that if you are presenting content in English for a global audience, it's worth bearing in mind that actually in the world, only 17% of people speak any English at all. 7% as a first language, about 10% as a second language. So this means that 83% of people don't understand a word you're saying, which is kind of weird because we always think so many more people speak English than actually do. Now, albeit a lot of people in your sector may have good command of English, but we know that they still prefer doing business online in their native language. So when you're thinking about translation projects and presenting an international website, we encourage you to simplify the English. For the people who've learned it as a second language and don't understand as well, use simpler words, cut down the volume of English, which also has the knock-on benefit of you having to translate that, and you're going to be paying per 1,000 words. So if you reduce the English and simplify it, you're also reducing your costs. The other thing you will need to think about is that actually there are different words in different countries. And it's quite an interesting one. In America, there are 4,000 words that mean something completely different to what they mean in the UK. If you just think of apartment, condominium, bum bag, fanny pack, highway, you know, all of these words that we need to understand and be mindful of, and we need to be sure that we are using the right ones for the customer experience. Google's great now at contextualizing and understanding what is being presented, but so that the customers visiting your website have a great experience. And it does make a difference. In Germany, for example, the actual word is a mobile telephone, but nobody calls it that. In Germany, they use an English word, but it's not the English word that we use. They call it a handy. So if you were selling these in Germany, you would optimize your website using the word handy. And you might put mobile telephone in as well, but you would definitely use the word handy. So there are many things to think about when you are doing this. So I like to view that adaptation of UK English into international English almost as being a translation again, reducing the content and actually simplifying the language. And we'll come on to that in the next section as to how you go about doing that. And then selecting words that you know your local audience use in that country to describe and search for your products and services. What would they type into search engines? And you'll have studied this as you were doing your customer profiling. So we did some work with a company years back, a colleague of mine, on a company called Power Bronze, and they sold accessories for motorbikes, and they had mud flaps, as we call them, was one of their best-selling accessories. And actually, they weren't selling any in the USA until they realized from the lovely Sarah that actually they call mud flaps rear huggers in the USA. And once they changed that on the website, in the next months, they turned over £76,000 worth of mud flaps. So it's important to get that optimization right in global English. So that might be your first base, and you might stay there, and you might be completely happy staying there and not even thinking about languages. However, it is worth bearing in mind that languages, as I said at the beginning, can increase sales over 400%. So if you do want to introduce languages, you might want to start out with some simple landing pages, with a small section in the website, not translating the whole website, but just offering top-level products or services, a little bit of information about you, how the sales piece and the payments work, how to get in touch, maybe frequently asked questions, and just putting together some country or language pages in the local language that is a good way to dip your toe in the water, to start doing a little bit of business in that country before you're having to commit huge amounts of time, money, and effort to actually translating your whole website. So this can be a great way to start acting local, to get a local presence with some local content, local language. You have got, however, one key decision to make as to whether you want to target countries or whether you want to target languages. So if we target Spain, you are targeting essentially around 47 million people who speak Spanish as a native language. You can have great targeted marketing and communications on the website with pages for Spain, with the Spanish flag, with a local number in Madrid or Barcelona or wherever. You might have representation there and lots of stories that are pertinent to Spain as a country. However, if you target Spanish as a language, it's going to reach over 310 million people and about 26 countries. So you're reaching a much, much bigger market, but with more generic messages in Spanish because you're not niching down to a particular country. So the whole sales journey will be different and it'll be a much more generic Spanish message that you are putting out there. So that is a key decision you need to make here. You would not use flags for languages, guys, because if you put the Spanish flag up there, but they're actually based in the USA or Latin America, they're not going to love you very much. So only use flags with countries, otherwise use the name of the language. But that is something that is a great first base before you go on, and we've seen the examples of the HSBC and the BBC, before you go on to actually build a local website sat on a local domain name with local contact numbers and links perhaps to partners and representatives out in the country where you're starting to do some joint marketing effort. So step 1, 2, and 3, that's the whole journey. You may already be there and wanting to build a dedicated website for a particular country, but actually just introducing a small section in English for an international audience or a little bit of local language can stand you in very, very good stead. So some nice, easy ways to ease yourself into this globalization. So I've noticed that quite a few of you are still on .co.uk domains. And I would encourage you to secure a .com, preferably because it's the most common and popular, or another what we call GTLD, generic top level domain. The .net, the .biz, the .info, if you're a charity or social enterprise, the .org, the .co, the .tv, all of these are generic top level domains. The .com I think is still the most popular, the most common, but a generic top level domain means your website will be visible internationally. If you think when we're searching here, we find .co.uk's, we find .coms, but we rarely see foreign language websites. That's simply because Google wants to deliver us search results that are relevant to us here in the UK. So it's going to give us .co.uk geographic domain names and .coms. It's not going to give us a .de, a .es, a .jp or such like. So this is something to seriously consider. Do not change your domain name without reviewing this carefully with your web development team or with someone like myself who can advise, because your domains do gather what I call online no claims bonus search engine optimization juice. So you don't want to be switching off a .co.uk and moving your website to a .com, because you may see traffic to the website dipping. So that process needs to be managed very carefully and perhaps topped up with a marketing campaign. In fact, you may decide, if you're a retailer or if you're getting a lot of enquiries through the .co.uk, to keep that for the UK website and to actually focus on building a separate international offer on the .com. It would need to be sufficiently differentiated, so you're running two, or you just stick with the .co.uk and you drive traffic to that website through social media, through content marketing, and through other traditional forms of marketing. So you have a number of options there on reflection, but typically I will see big uplifts in traffic and inquiries to websites when you get this aspect right. And if you want to tap into good comprehensive search results, then it's worthwhile considering moving to a .com or a generic top level domain. Now, it's interesting how different companies actually achieve this. Apple, for example, they bring people into apple.com and then ship them out to subdirectories. So apple.com/UK/FR/DE. That would be a typical journey. Yes, you could still come into the main subdirectory, but that would be the typical flow. And here we've got an example of a subdirectory domain name. This is a local company in the Northeast here. They couldn't get the .com that had already gone to a competitor in the USA. So they've gone with the .net, and they've introduced a global location section where they've got a world map with their distributors outlined in there, and information in terms of how the sales journey works at that particular organization for international clients. And you'll see here they've also got really strong calls to action, good use of keywords and key phrases on the website. So you know, a little bit outdated now, but certainly a very good proposition. Here we've got Nigel Wright. They opt for subdomains rather than subdirectories. So you would get your web developer to set these up for you. The 2-letter country code for Germany, DE, is simply set before the company domain name. There's very little difference technically between a subdomain where the denominator is before the company name to a subdirectory where you'd have DE or Germany after nigelwright.com. Certainly very little difference in terms of SEO benefit and such like. I just think the subdomains as they're written here are less familiar to clients and potentially more chance of them getting the full stop in the wrong place or typing it in incorrectly. But other than that, they're pretty much of a muchness. Adidas, for example, they take people directly to a dedicated website for each country. Now, you need to have a strong business case to justify building a dedicated website for each country and looking to maintain and promote that website. But if you are there, then that is potentially the best way to do it. That might be an end goal for you. Dedicated website for that country in the local language on a local domain name that is potentially even hosted in country, that would give you the very best results. But you can still get excellent results from staying at stage 1 or stage 2 on that 3-step website strategy journey. So again, Tetley.com there. We've seen Tetley.pl and TetleyUSA.com. So just examples of domain names so that you can see how they fit there. We've already been through those. So your checklist for your web strategy, and some action points for you here, guys, as well. First of all, think about securing a .com or generic top-level domain. Bit of research on GoDaddy or 123reg, etc., to see what's available. You can set up an international section, either as a subdirectory, .com/international, or as a subdomain, international.yourcompany.com. Country-specific pages as subdirectories or subdomains, and language-specific pages as subdirectories or subdomains. And you can also consider buying local country code domains with local content in local languages, such as yourcompany.fr, .es, or .ie. There are many generic top-level domains, .com, .eu, .asia, etc., .biz, .info. I tend to stick now to the .com, the .co.uk, and then any, or the .org if you've got a charitable interest, or any country code domains. You may just want to protect them and tuck them away, have them redirect to your main website, keep them active so that others can't buy them. But these could be situated on a landing page and have some clever navigation through to the main website. So they could actually be building a bit of sales and traction in a local marketplace for you. So local country code domains, you might want to actually create those in the foreign language. So training in French is formation, so you could register those as well. And you can actually buy internationalized domain names in Japanese, Chinese, Korean, or Arabic script. I don't have any clients who do that, but it is possible. There's some techie things to bear in mind. Most do these days, but you may need extra plugins. So make sure that your content management system supports multilingual. And if you're using any widgets for forms and other things, then make sure they support the foreign languages as well. Check out how they print out, just so you get the CSS correct, so that accents and scripts actually print appropriately and they're set up properly. And in the language declaration in the source code, this is something for your web developer, please make sure that you've got the language code set up correctly. And it looks like this: lang equals en-GB. WordPress is set as standard to en-US. So if you're using a WordPress site here in the UK, you might want to change this. It's not a massive thing. Google doesn't pay much attention to these anymore, but some international search engines do. And it takes seconds, so it's an easy thing to change. The character set encoding for a globalized website should be set at UTF-8, another question for your web developer. And if you do introduce Arabic, then the direction of the copy should be left to right as opposed to right to left, because otherwise your search engine is reading your expensive Arabic translation back to front. You would need a language sitemap. You can integrate it in the main sitemap, but it would need to be differentiated. And language navigation, top right-hand corner of the website is where we expect to see it, not down at the bottom. And you will find more information at w3.org/international, where you can get much more information and insights that we just don't have time for today on this webinar. The other thing is, in terms of quality translation, you may actually put Google Translate up there. However, my strong recommendation is always have translation done by a native speaker and proofread by a native speaker, because Google Translate is not foolproof. You might end up getting marmalade in the machinery rather than a jam in the machinery. So, you know, it's not brilliant sometimes at that accurate translation in context. So we recommend always getting it done by native speakers. You might want to consider geo-targeting these subdirectory sections to each country. So if I am in the Netherlands, I actually get directed immediately to the Dutch page. You may also want to buy local domain names and use a 301 redirect to have those pointing at the right section in the website. You do need to be careful with IP address recognition. You know, if I am based in the United Arab Emirates, I don't want Arabic. I'd prefer browser language detection where it can see that I am using English on my browser, therefore I get the English version of the website. And if you would like to check out 2-letter country and language codes, you will find a complete list of those on Wikipedia. And finally here, I'd just like to remind you to take a look at Google Webmasters. They have got some great information on international and some great tutorials, and there's some forums where you can ask questions and get lots of help. And also register your website here under Google Search Console such that you've got that direct dialogue with Google, and you can start linking tools and resources to help your website perform better, but I'm sure you know that already. So 3-step international strategy: get it right in English first, think about international section, or actually internationalizing or globalizing your whole website using simple global English, thinking about optimization. Adding country or language pages potentially. Obviously you need translation doing, so you need a native speaker to help you, and we're coming on to languages now, to help you with that translation, to get the keywords translated correctly, potentially moving on to a local website on a local domain with local links and contact information, potentially even joint marketing efforts with your partners overseas. So nice, simple way you can dip in and out of this at any level, and I would focus on one area, get that right, feel confident, and potentially if it feels right for you and the business case is there, then move on to the next stage. So 4 tips here for you. Make sure your website strategy is properly aligned to your export strategy. It's the job of your website to actually support your export sales. So we really need to make sure that it does support that and reflects what you're doing physically on the website and represents that perhaps with a world map or whatever, such that the visitor gets a great view of that. Get the .com or a good generic top-level domain. It might simply be mycompanyglobal.com, for example. Set up your international domain structure. Think about subdirectories or subdomains and how you're going to create that, domain structure for your export strategy. And then get signed up for Google Webmaster and Search Console. So, Rory, I think I'll leave questions until after the language section, if that's all right with you, because it's a short section, but if you can jot your questions down, if you have any, and I'll take you through the next section, top tip 5, which is mind your language. And just some top level figures here for your language business case if you are thinking about this. 70% of online searches are not in English, they're in foreign languages, which is huge. There's a 400% increase in appetite to buy or engage with you if you address people in their native language. The dwell time doubles if you are addressing people in their native language. And we know from research as well that 90% of Europeans prefer visiting local websites in their local language, even if they speak good English. And we know also that if you use language skills on your website and in your communications, you will always have higher export sales. That is a fact that the DIT have been aware of for some considerable time. Those businesses who use languages get better results. So the first aspect when looking at language is this global English thing, simplifying English and almost treating it as a different language. So what does this mean? Well, first of all, reduce the volume of content, simplify it. And it's not necessarily always easier. Mark Twain said, I would have written less, but I didn't have time. Reduce it down, make the effort, simplify it. And where you can for global, use animations, infographics, images, etc. Visual representation rather than lots of copy to read is so much easier for your audience. Keep sentences short. If it goes over 2 lines, where can I use a full stop and create 2 sentences? We tend to fluff it up and write quite complex English when we're writing for a website or a brochure, etc. And it doesn't serve you well. You really need to keep sentences short for your global audience. Simplify the language. Say staff or people, not human resources. How can we actually simplify this? And honestly, your UK clients will thank you for this as well, because it just becomes easier to digest, more accessible. Avoid jargon, acronyms, slang, and insider talk. Things like, oh, you know, we really understand a client's bottom line. Things like that often just get completely misunderstood in international markets. And it's a thing that you really need to be very conscious of and almost detach and distance yourself from it and then come back and read a piece of copy, because it can just cause confusion and it makes it hard for people who haven't learned English as a native language. Provide visual support. As I mentioned, a picture speaks 1,000 words. So use images, use video, use infographics, use animations, use diagrams wherever you possibly can. It just helps get those concepts across much better. When you're using copy, break it up. This is good web practice anyway, but even more important for globalization. Use bullet points, underlining, bold, and make it easier for people to scan copy rather than having to read a lot of content, which is hard work. And the other recommendation is don't make assumptions about what people understand and don't understand, about what people find easy or hard to digest and work with. Take the copy once you've got it ready, and if you can, test it out on people. If it's in English, I often used to use, I can't now, but I used to use grandma, and if grandma could read it and make sense of it, then it was great. Or give a piece of copy to someone, you know, not in the business, who doesn't understand your sector, to actually read it and see whether they can make sense of it. If you can test it with non-native speakers of English, all the better. So please don't make assumptions and get that tested out. Now, Willy Brandt said, if I'm selling to you, I speak your language. If I'm buying, dann müssen Sie Deutsch sprechen. Then you need to speak my language. His language was German. So, you know, the onus is on you selling to actually adopt a local market's language and cultural preferences. So here's a list of the top 10 languages on the internet. English is still up there. Chinese, very dominant, as is Spanish, Arabic, Portuguese. You can read through that list there. It is changing. These internet stats, I've quoted the source down there. You can check out the latest results. There is a great website around languages called Ethnologue, ethnologue.com, that also spends a lot of time and energy setting out the different languages and dialects globally across the world, if you are interested in delving into that a little bit more. And I'd just like to run through a stress-free approach to you adopting languages and going through a translation project. Start small, scope a simple project, and that might just be a landing page for the website and getting your LinkedIn profile and company page translated, which would be a great way to start, or even just doing your LinkedIn company page and profile would be a great way to start. I translated my LinkedIn profile into German before I went off to Germany, and my visibility went up 465% in Germany in 3 months. It was amazing. Focus on your key markets and key clients. So start off with 1 or 2 languages only, 1 or 2 international or country or language sections, and do those well. Don't try and do too much at the same time. Reduce UK English and use plain global English. Remember, you're paying per 1,000 words, so the less copy you have to translate, the better. The more effective it will be for your audience. Translate and proofread the language content professionally. If you're using language professionals, they must be native speakers. Get somebody else to do the proofreading to the person who does the translation, and sense check, if you can, the context with local staff partners or friends who understand your sector and your business. Involve and inform the team. Make sure the team, if you have a team, know what you're doing and they're involved with it, and that they are ready and briefed and prepped to potentially receive more enquiries from non-native speakers of English. And there are some great, by the way, some great process things that are very simple that you can put in place to manage incoming international enquiries. Make sure that you give the team support for when they are handling foreign language enquiries, and perhaps some support with translations. Google Translate is great to use in-house. Don't use it for external communications without a caveat against it. You can readily set up a process with freelancers or translation agencies that will support you in managing foreign language enquiries. Trust me, it's a lovely problem to have because you are getting more enquiries through. You just need to refine your processes to actually deal with them. And become a language champion in your company. You know, people are shy about languages and about talking languages. And it's quite nice to do a little bit of cultural work about languages, and actually you or someone else to become a bit of a language champion. And you could even do, you know, learn a few phrases or such like. Generate enthusiasm. If you've got overseas partners, they may be able to contribute towards that as well. So there you go. Some tips on a stress-free approach to translation projects. Please remember, when you are translating your website, you will be translating the content that you can see on the page, but you also need to translate the URLs, you need to translate the meta title, and you need to translate the meta descriptions, and you need to translate alt tags on images and image names, and all of those things you've learned about with this great project you're involved in, that they would also need translating. So I talk about translating your digital assets as well. And here you can see the BBC website. They've translated the meta titles and the meta descriptions and the content. This is what the results look like in Google. And they've also made sure that they've changed the language in the source code, and they've changed the direction for the Arabic from right to left. So just a prompt there for you if you are doing Arabic about that metadata, those digital assets that also need translation. So the summary for Mind Your Language: define your language business case. Make sure that it is compelling enough for you to invest in developing and globalizing your website and your communications channels, and that you have time from section 1 to dedicate to building up a new export market. Use global English, treat it as another language. Look at a stress-free translation project through doing it in line with the best practice that I've set out. And don't forget to translate the metadata and your website assets. So let's look at your action list and how you can prepare to plan so that you are going to get, great increases in traffic from international markets, enquiries, and conversions. So we talked about benchmarking. This is now about you being clear about your goals and what your vision is and what would good look like, and putting some definition to that on a realistic, pragmatic, but perhaps slightly challenging basis, so that you have some good goals to aim for. So what would you like to achieve? And as an action point to take away, to reflect on, following on from this webinar, really, go grab a cup of tea, go sit outside in the sun, take a breather, and just reflect on what you would like to achieve. Maybe set down 3 core goals that you would like to achieve over the next few months. And this is something that you'll be able to talk to your advisors about as well. Make the time to prepare your plans, because the implementation and measurement will be so much easier when you actually do that and really make the effort to get that right. So simple, smart goals, be accountable, have a written plan, share it with someone so that you are accountable, and break it down into monthly, weekly, and daily goals. And above all, don't forget to reward yourself and celebrate success. And you may actually also need to share the load with other people. So think about outsourcing, or who else might be able to help you with this. I'm going to flick forward here to the 4 R's. What I would like you to think about is all of the action points that you might have jotted down. What are you going to remove because it's not relevant for you? What would you like to revise? You're going to do something, but maybe do it slightly differently. You may reallocate an action point to someone else because you don't need to do it yourself. Some of them you will retain and progress with those. So use the 4 R's to look at all of the action points and determine what's right for you and what's right for your business moving forward. So SMART goals, written plan, do a content audit, have a look at all of the action points on your action plan, and use the 4 R's tool to whittle it down to the core essentials. This is all really part of being kind to yourself and not slipping into overwhelm. So 6 top tips to globalize your website. I hope you found that useful and helpful. Please bear in mind, if you would like to have the results of the outline web audit that I did for you in preparation for this webinar, link with me on LinkedIn, drop me a line. I'd be very happy to share the results with you, and also to take any questions that you may have. And it's just up to me now to say thank you, wish you lots of good luck, and hand back to Rory.